Welcome back everyone, Oz here, and today I've got some r/AmITheDevil for you all. As per usual, I'll be reading the posts, giving you my own opinion, and I hope you do the same down in the comments below. And without further ado, let's jump right into it. r/relationships. My girlfriend, 27 female, and I, 24 male, had an argument about my suggestion to occasionally eat foods I enjoy that contain ingredients she's allergic to. Please help me on how to fix this. My girlfriend, 27, and I, 24, had an argument today. We've been dating for 4 months and it's been an adjustment for me. Here's some background. I grew up on enjoying nuts and foods that contain them, like Indian, Mediterranean, and Middle Eastern cuisine. My girlfriend has a severe nut allergy, so when we started dating, I gave up those foods, including my favorite chocolate with nuts. I did this because I care about her, and I want to be responsible for her safety. Since we began dating, we've spent every day together. Recently, I suggested that since I see us in a long-term relationship, it might be okay for me to enjoy those foods a few times a year, maybe 6 to 8 times, because she often feels anxious about it. I think I might have crossed a boundary as she seemed upset, interpreting my suggestion as a risk to her life. I proposed that I could eat Indian or Middle Eastern food and then make sure to cleanse my mouth thoroughly before we saw each other again, using mouthwash, flossing, a water flosser, and a tongue scraper. However, she still seemed upset, and I realized I might not have to fully understand why my suggestion was problematic. While I get that she can't control her allergy, I also feel that I shouldn't have to give up everything I enjoy. I thought that if we worked together, having those meals occasionally could be manageable. In the heat of the moment, I ended up telling her that she was being controlling and selfish for getting upset about my desire to eat those foods. I'm new to dating and I'm seeking feedback. Please give me your honest opinion on how I should approach this situation. I'm not looking for a right or wrong stance. I genuinely want to know how I can fix this. I want to say sorry, but I also don't want to put the topic of being able to enjoy my favorite food behind us. I'd appreciate advice on how to handle this better. Thank you. Too long didn't read, my girlfriend and I argued about my desire to occasionally eat foods I love that contain nuts, despite her severe nut allergy. I've given up these foods for her, but I suggested having them 6 to 8 times a year with precautions. She felt upset, and I might have crossed a boundary by suggesting it. I need feedback on how to approach this better. Okay. You realized you made a mistake, so I don't need to, grind you into the ground here, but let's talk about this. I would assume that your partner is probably really self-conscious about the fact that you gave up foods that you really enjoy because of her allergy, and she's probably really appreciative of that. But it probably also stresses her out and makes her feel inadequate in the relationship because you are making sacrifices for something she can't control. And there is an aspect of being reminded of that when you ask about those foods, and I do gotta say, you gotta really clarify that you mean only for you, because it does sound like in this post that you suggested both of you can eat these foods. The wording is a little ambiguous. But also, the situation depends heavily on how severe her nut allergy is. Like, if you open a bag of macadamia nuts in the same room with her, will she have an allergic reaction? Because if that's the case, then you gotta just make that sacrifice, dude. Also, just in general, there is nothing wrong with desiring and wanting to have foods that you miss. But what you have to understand is cross-contamination is a major fucking thing. And not to mention, with some nuts, you can actually contaminate your bodily fluids. So you gotta be careful with that too. Allergies are incredibly complex, and if you really miss having those foods, honestly, the best way that you can still enjoy them is when you're either out of the house, on vacation, or visiting family, and your partner isn't around, then you're probably safe to have those, as long as you're not having a nut that can contaminate your bodily fluids. Those exist. I don't remember which ones, but they exist. But a lot of this does come from the fact that your partner is probably insulted by the idea that you would risk cross-contamination. And then, of course, not to mention you turn around and then call her selfish and controlling because she doesn't want to fucking die to her allergy. Originally posted to r/relationship advice. My 40 female husband, 40 male, has been going to therapy to work on his temper, and his therapist reported him to CPS. He's saying he'll no longer go to therapy because of this. How do I keep him engaged in the therapy needed to do the work? So me, 40 female, and my husband have been together for about 10 years, married for 5 of them. We have 1 child, a 3-year-old male. My husband has always had a short fuse, argumentative, and had challenges managing his anger. It's taken me a long time to convince him to go to therapy. He agreed about a year ago. It became clear recently he wasn't being open and honest with his therapist, and I have continually pushed him to be open so he can address his issues. For reference, he's never hit or hurt me or my son. I'd call him more of a yeller, and the type that tries to avoid conflict by being loud. This isn't a good dynamic for the home, so I've been on him about talking to someone to help with managing this. In rare instances, he has thrown something, never at me or my son. One of these instances was recent, and I told him to be honest with his therapist to help him understand why this is his reaction and to work with him on healthier responses. He had his session this week and asked to increase his sessions. I was relieved that he was honest and knew enough to seek more than the monthly sessions he had. However, today, CPS left a card on my door and wants to talk to me regarding concerning behavior with Dad. Clearly, I know who made the report and so does my husband. I've arranged to meet with them already. But the problem I'm also facing is that my husband, who has been so distrustful of the system and very impacted by the stigma of it, now distrusts it even more. I'm also a bit angry because this specific incident wasn't even anything that would be reported. He threw my son's Play-Doh in the yard after my son played with it on the deck and was refusing to clean it up. I'm also a PhD clinician, so I'm very familiar with the system and very protective of mine and my son's safety and well-being. While my husband's temper is a current challenge, he has been committing to taking steps to work on it. I love him very much and I love our family, as long as he's committing to working on it and changing. I've agreed to be here for support. I've made it clear to him that I will leave if things don't change because his temper and unpredictability are not healthy for our home. However, he's told me he's going to stop going to therapy because this is what happens when he's being honest in session. Any advice on how to keep him engaged? I'm feeling a whole host of emotions, mostly sadness that someone seeking help gets reported for an anger outburst, reinforcing his distrust in the system and convincing him to not be honest in his self-work. Also, that the therapist who has told him many times how they are a mandated reporter did not feel the need to tell him he disclosed something they felt obligated to report. I know not required, but I've always operated on the ethical principle with those I've treated. I feel like without his commitment to getting help working on this, our marriage will fail. Okay, so first things first, I'm definitely not a PhD clinician, like in the slightest. That should be pretty fucking obvious. But what I will say is, I have a weird sense that there is a little bit of downplaying your husband's actions in this story. I am glad that you've set yourself to leave if he does not improve, and you definitely should stick by that, and he definitely should continue to go to therapy. Because the thing is, your husband most certainly said something to his therapist that was enough of a red flag to make them want to double check with CPS. So he's got to be honest with you as to what he told the therapist, because chances are he probably said something that you definitely would not like. And as many people in the audience will probably point out, this kind of environment is not healthy in the slightest. And someone who is a PhD clinician who has the best well-being for her and her son in mind should be very aware of this and aware of the potential psychological damage this can cause long-term. And for the husband, whether or not you two decide to separate, get divorced, or continue living in the same household, he really should continue to go through therapy. And if it requires a temporary removal of him from the house, then that's what should be done. Originally posted to r/relationship advice. I, 44 male, have to end the relationship with my son, 18 male. How do I move to process this? This is the hardest thing I have ever had to do in my life, and I hope no parent ever has to go through what I'm going through now. My son and I used to be very close. My son came out to us 5 years ago, and my wife didn't take it well. My wife comes from a traditional country, and she's big on tradition. After that, she stopped speaking to him. That was our son, but I couldn't make her have a relationship with him. I love my wife, and she has a great relationship with our other 2 kids, but this brought a lot of tension in the house. She just ignored him and still doesn't speak to him. She didn't attend his high school graduation or anything. I won't say which one, but he got a scholarship and plays a sport at one of the service academies. My wife didn't come to see him off or go to his first day. He started to cut me off and says I have to choose between him or my wife. I'm devastated, man. He said he resents me because I allowed her to treat him this way. I'm gonna text him the following. I love you and this is the hardest thing I have had to do, but I am not choosing between you and your mother. I went to all your games, supported you, taught you how to play the bass. Anytime you needed me, I have been there and I still will be. Your mother did a lot of things, but she never tried to make me pick between the 2 of you. Whew, God, oh boy. I will not pick between you two, and if you feel you cannot talk to me because of that, then I have to accept that. This is really hard because I love my son, but at least I take comfort that I did everything I could for him. I raised a great kid, and now he attends the service academy. I know I was the best father I could be. I just gotta process this. Okay. I grew up as a closeted queer kid, alright, and that was not fun. Because one of the biggest fears that you can have as someone who is in the closet is the reaction that you'll get when you come out. Sure, everyone's going to hope that their parents will actually be loving and supportive of them, but it's all too common to find out that your parents will just simply tolerate you, but have you immediately move out by the time you turn 18. Or worse, in some scenarios, just simply kick you out and completely just shun you from ever being a part of the family. And unfortunately, it sounds like your son got both the best possibility and also the worst possibility. He had a father who supported him, but a mother who hated him. And yeah, it can feel kind of shitty that your son is making you make that decision to choose either him or his mother, but what you have to remember is that in one boat, you have your wife who just hates your son for existing, and you have your son who loves both of you equally but has to deal with the fact that his mother just hates him for existing, and is asking you, hey, do you love me or do you love the person who hates me for existing? And you chose the person who hates him for existing. And because of that, you were not the best father you could have been. You did not do everything that you could for him. From what you described, you made no attempt to even talk to your wife to try to open her mind and accept her son for who he is. Instead, you just simply said, it is what it is. Why can't you tolerate your mother has these views? And you have to keep in mind, your son has lived the last 5 years of his life living in a household with a mother who sees him as blight. And in general, this is more of just going out towards my audience for those of you who might be parents of children you suspect to be queer or just new parents in general. One thing that I can say as a child who grew up in the closet in Idaho and worried that my parents were homophobic, the axe forgets, but the tree remembers. A passing bigoted comment that you make when your child is 6 or 7 who may not have the full interpretation of what's going on will remember that. And when they can comprehend what's going on, their mind will always drift back towards that memory over and over and over again. And unfortunately for me, when I was growing up, I didn't come out to my parents until I was in my 20s. The reason why is because I actually knew that one of my parents would accept me and love me wholeheartedly. But what I was afraid of was my other parent figuring it out. And I remember when I finally did come out to this parent, their response was denial on if they had ever said anything homophobic in their life. They had spent a lot of time arguing with me about how my memories were actually fake. And then on top of that, they then proceeded to pivot and tell me, do not tell my other parent because they will never accept me. When I had already had the conversation with them, and they were... All I'll say is that it's more telling based upon the reaction of I had one parent who was mortified and asking if they had ever done anything to make me feel unsafe, while the other one had done nothing but deny anything that had made me feel unsafe. And I know my experience is not even close to being alone here. This is unbelievably common for people who are growing up LGBTQ. Originally posted to r/AmITheAsshole. Am I the asshole for not participating in an optional university assignment? I just got a rough talking to from my professor, so I need a second opinion. I'm in my first year of uni, and I'm taking a creative entrepreneurship class. The latest project we had assigned was creating a mock product and pitching it to the class, a la Shark Tank. No biggie. I worked hard on it, completed it, and presented it. No problem. Now, the kicker was that the professor would choose a handful of students who did the best, and we would present again. This time, to a set of outside industry professionals who would act as mock judges and offer feedback on our pitches. This was all known beforehand, and while I did want to do well, I had no intention of doing the second presentation, on the account of, frankly, my terrible stage fright. One time was enough for me. Good thing the professor mentioned that it was optional. A week later, I discovered that I was chosen through the course site, also detailing how the professor would be holding a Zoom meeting for an overview and practice runs for the final presentation. Well, I thought, he said it was optional, good luck to everyone else, and then went about my day. The day came for the second round of presentations, taking place in an amphitheater, a lot grander of an event than I had assumed, especially considering this is a first-year program. Good thing I'm not up. On a projector screen above the podium were the names of all who were chosen, including my own. I assumed that my absence in the Zoom meeting by proxy opted me out, or that willing students that were chosen simply needed to confirm, and the professor would disregard the others, but apparently not. Frozen in a state of confusion, I watched the first few presenters do their thing before I was called to the podium. Easy, I calmed myself down and simply told the professor that I wouldn't be presenting and they could move right along. No biggie. Wrong. What do you mean you're not presenting? The professor was initially confused, but then became quite crossed, saying that I was unprepared and wasting a spot for other students who had worked tirelessly on their own project and actually wanted this opportunity. I was weirdly guilt-tripped, and even after I reminded him that it was optional, he still scolded me in front of the amphitheater. While it became clear that the professor would have swapped with another runner-up student in the event of a dropout, it was an odd reaction to what was to me a simple misunderstanding over a project barely worth a quarter of our grade. He reluctantly conceded and moved along with the presentations, but that interaction did not sit right with me at all, considering I too worked hard on my project but simply didn't choose to go for the bonus level. Again, while I should have personally emailed the professor beforehand, he never stated explicitly to opt out and assumed that everyone who was chosen was presenting. I have to wonder if a situation like this occurred in other years of the class being held, or if I'm just an idiot / spot-holding asshole. Okay, buddy, the problem is that you didn't communicate to your professor that you weren't interested in the opportunity. Like, at no point did you ever state that you emailed your professor stating, I'm not interested in this opportunity. You assumed that by doing specific actions, you would be automatically opted out. And you left the professor to assume, based upon your actions, that either maybe you were busy or X, Y, or Z, and, why strip that away from a student who may have just been not able to attend the Zoom call that day? That wouldn't be fair to them. So he left you on the board. Because he was left to assume, because you assume, but, you get the point. It's a cycle of assumptions. There is nothing wrong with over-clarifying things with professors because it is always better to clarify and be a little bit annoying with the over-clarification than to just simply assume and fuck up down the line, especially on something that's barely worth a quarter of your grade. Holy hell, dude. Oh, so this is kind of a little life hack for those of you who are still in uni. Doing shit like this with your professor opens a lot of doors for you down the line. There's a reason why they have industry connections. R/off my chest. I invested my son's college fund into NFTs. My family still doesn't know. I, 36 male, heard about an NFT investment opportunity on X recently. You're one of those. Going through a guy that was apparently very high up in the industry. I'm a finance professional, and I thought that I would, I'm sorry I'm laughing, I know a twist at the end of this that I can't help but to giggle at. Anyways, I'm a finance professional, and I thought that I would have a pretty clear idea of how it would develop. I didn't have any investment funds to use, so I took 1/10 of my son's, 15 male, college fund and invested it, thinking it would be temporary. As soon as I made the money back, I was going to use it to double what I'd taken out of the fund. I was told that the stocks were doing really well, so I decided to keep taking more money out of his fund and investing it. After I had put all the money in, I got no updates in the stocks and I realized it was a scam. It was too late to recover anything. I haven't told my family because I'm worried about how they will take it. I'm also pretty shocked as to how easily I got scammed. I wouldn't consider myself particularly susceptible to scams at all, but this has shaken me. Edit just to answer some commonly asked questions. There's no way you're an actual financial... This is what made me giggle. There's no way you're an actual finance professional. Yes, I am. I've been day trading for 6 months and have made profits in the past. You wouldn't fall for a scam like this considering your profession. I wouldn't have thought so either. The website he linked to was very professional, had multiple customer statements talking about their profits, had numbers that supported their statements, and was very polite and professional when dealing with me. Why invest in NFTs in 2024? They've been steadily improving the benefits of NFTs. They're more scalable, and they have the opportunity to revolutionize digital property in industries like gaming and AI. Also, 15 is the age of my son, not the amount that was in his college fund. That is a good clarification because I can see how someone thought it might be 15 million. Thanks to all the people telling me to come clean, I will do that as soon as I have made back the money. No, dude! Update, she wants a divorce. Fuck my life. This will be the final edit because honestly, this post has only made things worse. Fuck you guys. So, as someone who was once 17 and thought I could get rich quick off of crypto, like, did you not look into a white paper, a roadmap, or anything along those lines? You just saw a website and took it at face value for what can easily be faked, like customer testimonials? Like, I struggle to have that much pity because we've been at this with crypto for almost 14 years now, and we know the ups and downs of it, and Google is free, by the way. Also, again, when I say this, I hate crypto with a passion. NFTs and the idea of a token is just not something that will generally work in the future. They've tried it with Ravencoin, and NFTs just did not work because it got flooded with shitty JPEGs. And again, rolling it back to what I said earlier, if this was a legitimate technology using the blockchain, which I fucking hate, they would at least have a roadmap, block paper, some kind of proof of concept that you could fiddle with. I mean, you could even, hell, see what they're trading on the actual blockchain itself, and you didn't even think just to check that? Like, dude, not to mention the whole thing of you taking someone's word on Twitter for crypto. Crypto scams are everywhere on Twitter. Not to mention, you just took their word for it? You're a quote-unquote financial professional, and you just took their word that it's going up in stocks with NFTs are doing great, so you should invest more. You just took their word for it and dumped more of your son's college tuition in there. And the nice little cherry on top is, I'm going to tell them when I make the money back. It's really hard for me to feel bad for you because it's not like you invested your money and got scammed. You invested your son's future into a scam. So yeah, I'm gonna be a little bit petty and catty and kind of just taking some low blows. Those shins look real tasty. Here's an aluminum bat. Am I the asshole? Am I the asshole because I took the leftover homes after a work party? I've worked at this company for 3 years. My 3-year anniversary landed on the same day of my significant other proposing, and to top it off, I'm getting promoted. I was expecting at least something from my coworkers, like a small party, a gift, nothing fancy. I was pretty hurt when I came in that week to find nothing. There were congrats and well dones, but nothing else. I poured my eyes out later to my significant other later and expressed how uncared about I felt. He contacted one of my coworkers, soon-to-be employee, and she went to my manager and set something up. They had a little buffet in the break room, just the common stuff, veggie platter, dips, chips, and sweets like cookies, tarts, and brownies, and some banners. At the end of the day, I took the leftovers home with me on the plates and Tupperware they came in on. The coworker, again my soon-to-be employee, texted me that day asking if I took the sweets she made along with the plates. I said yeah, and she got super hostile. Apparently, she wanted to keep those in the break room for those unable to attend the party could still eat, and nowhere did she say this was all for me. She also needed the platter back because she was making a birthday cake for her niece. My significant other and I both agreed it was wrong for her to text me like that, and seeing as it was my party, if I wanted the leftovers, I deserved them. But he thinks I should just apologize to keep the peace. If I'm not wrong, I don't see the point. Update, stop saying I forced my significant other to contact my coworker. That was his own choice, and never once did I imply I approved or wanted him to do that. I only took the Tupperware because I had nothing else to carry the leftovers in. I try to make all employees feel special and celebrate their achievements, so I had more expectations out of them than I should have. That was my mistake. God, I can feel the venom in my mouth after repeating their words. Ugh. Look, there's nothing wrong with maybe having a little bit of an office party, and it's very clear they do respect you because they did set something up for you after your significant other, who is incredibly kind and thoughtful for reaching out to your coworkers to do this for you. And yeah, that's great of them to do that. However, where it starts to go wrong is you just taking shit home and the entitlement surrounding that you deserve to take these home. Those are people's dishes and Tupperware and stuff like that they were expecting to be able to take home and continue to have. And you didn't even ask if you could take them home. The problem here comes from the audacity of seeing all the food laid out that was for a party that, yes, was for you, trying to figure out a way to take them home, not figuring out how to, then just simply thinking, oh, I'll take their Tupperware and their dishes home with me. That's strike one because you should have asked. Then there was the fact that you felt that you deserved those foods. That's strike two because it was an office party. I mean, feel free to indulge as much as you possibly want, but at the same time, like, you shouldn't expect just to take other people's stuff home with you. Then, when a coworker called you out on it saying, hey, you took home one of my dishes and I was expecting those to remain in the office so people who weren't able to celebrate could still enjoy what I've cooked for the office, you thought they were being hostile and aggressive over something that's honestly quite a reasonable thing to bring forward. And also, as a general note, OP is one of the worst types of gift givers. They're the kind of person where they give you something that they like or they want or they appreciate and expect you to then do the same for them without any prompt or request. And then when you don't, they get pissed at you. And that is not just my assumption either, that is quite clearly spelled out at the end when they say, I try to make all my employees feel special and celebrate their achievements, so I had more expectations out of them than I should have. That was my mistake. It is also just a general rule of thumb for life. Don't give a gift with the expectation that someone will then turn around and do nearly the same thing for you. A gift should be that, no strings attached. If they do turn around and they do something for you, then hey. Am I the asshole for telling my sister my job is more important than hers? My 28 male sister, 31 female, is a marine biologist and just came back from a stint in Brazil working for a project that's rehabilitating sea turtles. Which is cool, of course, and an important job, but when I met her yesterday, first time we saw each other since she returned, she was with a friend that worked with her and said something like, "This is my brother, the one that works for the enemy." And they both laughed. I didn't say anything, but when her friend excused herself at some point, I asked my sister what she meant by that. And she said it was a joke because she had told her friend I'm a packaging designer. Which, I mean, it's true. I design the packs and labels for a bunch of consumer brands, so I gathered they saw me as part of this evil cause, as if I'm contributing to spread plastic and bottles around the world. I told her I don't appreciate that. I told her part of my job, besides creating art, involves high-level discussions to reduce the use of single-use plastic and adopt more eco-friendly materials. So if anything, I'm making more of a positive difference than she is, and my job is arguably more important. She acted like I was making a big deal out of an innocent joke, but then her friend came back to the table and we cut the argument short. Later she texted me, calling me an asshole for coming after her. Am I the asshole here? Like, besides the fact that that was a pretty harmless and innocent joke that is honestly pretty on brand for a marine biologist, I've met a few and they are a very snarky breed of person. This was definitely just an innocent joke at the fact that they are rehabilitating and saving sea turtles and you literally work for one of the companies that they've probably had to rehabilitate sea turtles from. And again, keep in mind, she did not say that you specifically were the enemy, just the company that you worked for. And then you went off on a tangent about how your job is more important than hers. Like, you have every right to tell your sister, hey, I don't appreciate you joking about me like that. Like, that's one thing. But then to turn around and go on this massive, high horse tirade about how you're so much better than her because you design eco-friendly packaging for a giant company that your sister has probably seen cause direct deaths of marine wildlife? That's what makes you the asshole here, dude. Don't forget, this is brought to you by GamerSupps. Use code ODDS at checkout. It's basically a caffeine powder that you put in your water, and I actually really like it. I use this on a daily basis. Don't forget that every purchase you make using code ODDS directly supports the channel. And if you want a personal recommendation from me, I would either recommend the Soda Pressing Pear or Dragon Fruit Punch. Those two are currently my favorite flavors. And as a note, once we sell a certain amount of stuff, I get my own flavor and my own cup, and you all know I'm gonna choose some degenerate shit that's gonna make their PR team squirm. My goal is to make them regret partnering with me. So please, use code ODDS at checkout to make my dream come true of making a PR team squirm.